The morning sky over Norfolk Naval Base looked normal until it did not. Lieutenant Commander Kim Tae-ho was drinking his coffee in the mess hall when every phone, radio, and television in the building started screaming emergency alerts at the same time. All personnel report to stations immediately. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Tae-ho set down his cup and looked out the window. High above the base, something blocked out the sun. The shadow stretched for miles in every direction. Other sailors pressed against the windows, pointing and shouting. "Dear God," whispered Petty Officer First Class Park Min-ho, standing next to Tae-ho. "What is that thing?" The object hanging in the sky was massive beyond imagination. It looked like a metal mountain turned upside down, with towers and spikes jutting out from every surface. Strange lights pulsed along its hull in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The ship was so large that clouds formed around its edges. Tae-ho had been a Navy SEAL for 15 years. He had seen combat in 3 different countries and survived situations that would have killed most men, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. "Min-ho, get everyone to the command center," Tae-ho ordered. "Move fast." They ran through corridors filled with panicking sailors. Outside, car alarms wailed as the alien ship's presence somehow interfered with electronic systems. The base's backup generators kicked in as the main power grid flickered. In the command center, Admiral Sarah Chen stood before a wall of monitors showing similar scenes from around the world. New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow. Every major city had an alien ship hovering above it. 12 ships in total, each one large enough to hold millions of people. "Sir, what are your orders?" Tae-ho asked, saluting. Admiral Chen looked older than her 50 years. Her face was pale but determined. "We wait and see what they want, Commander. But I want all teams ready for anything." The answer came 30 minutes later. Every television screen, computer monitor, and radio on Earth suddenly displayed the same image. A creature that looked like it had stepped out of humanity's worst nightmares filled the screens. General Korthak stood 8 feet tall, covered in dark green scales that looked harder than steel. His yellow eyes glowed with cold intelligence. Rows of sharp teeth filled his mouth when he spoke. Scars covered his face and neck, telling stories of countless battles. "People of Earth," the creature said in perfect English, though his voice sounded like gravel being crushed. "I am General Korthak of the Veltharian Empire. Your world now belongs to us." The command center fell silent except for the hum of electronics. Every person in the room stared at the screens in disbelief. "We have conquered 47 worlds across this galaxy," Korthak continued. "Each one thought they were special. Each one thought they could resist. All of them now serve the Empire willingly." The alien general walked closer to the camera. His massive form filled the entire screen. Behind him, other creatures in dark armor stood at attention. "Your surrender terms are simple and fair. You will immediately cease all military operations. You will dismantle all weapons of war. You will provide 10% of your population to serve as tribute workers in our mining colonies." Gasps echoed through the command center. 10% of Earth's population meant nearly 800 million people. "In return," Korthak said, showing those terrible teeth in what might have been meant as a smile, "we will allow your species to continue existing. Your cities will remain standing. Your leaders may continue governing local affairs under our guidance." Admiral Chen stepped forward. "Like hell they will," she muttered. "To demonstrate our power and encourage your cooperation," the alien continued, "observe." The view changed to show space above Earth's atmosphere. One of the alien ships rotated slowly, revealing weapons that glowed with blue energy. The weapons fired, sending beams of light toward a large asteroid that had been drifting near the moon. The asteroid, which scientists had estimated to be nearly a mile across, simply vanished. One moment it was there, solid rock that had existed for billions of years. The next moment nothing remained except glowing particles that scattered into the void. "Impressive, is it not?" Korthak's voice returned as the view switched back to his scarred face. "Each of our 12 ships carries weapons capable of ending all life on your planet within minutes. We could turn your oceans to steam and your continents to glass." Tae-ho felt his hands clench into fists. Around him, other sailors cursed under their breath. The alien was talking about genocide as casually as someone discussing the weather. However, the Empire prefers cooperation to destruction. Dead worlds provide no tribute. Empty planets serve no purpose. Korthak leaned back, studying the camera as if he could see through it to the billions of humans watching. "Your leaders have 72 hours to announce their surrender and begin dismantling your military forces. Tribute ships will be provided for the collection of workers. Those selected should consider themselves fortunate to serve a greater purpose. The alien paused, letting his words sink in. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Do not mistake our offer for weakness. Do not confuse our mercy with fear. 47 worlds have learned the wisdom of submission. Your world will be the 48th, whether through cooperation or conquest. Some of you may believe your primitive weapons can harm our ships. Some of you may think your military forces can resist our armies. We encourage such delusions. The entertainment value will make your eventual surrender more amusing. Lieutenant Commander Yoon Ji-won, the base's intelligence officer, entered the command center with a tablet full of data. She approached Admiral Chen and whispered urgently in her ear. Chen's expression grew even more grim. What is it, Admiral? Taeho asked. Long-range scans show each of their ships is defended by energy shields, Chen replied. Our missiles can't penetrate them. Their armor is made from materials we don't even understand. And those weapons, she gestured at the screen where Korthak still spoke. One blast from their main guns could level Manhattan. They're not bluffing about being able to destroy the planet. Korthak's transmission continued. Your species shows promise. You have achieved spaceflight, though your technology remains crude. You have developed nuclear weapons, though they are toys compared to our arsenal. Most importantly, you have learned to wage war, which suggests you might serve well in our expansion fleets. The alien general stood to his full height, making him appear even more intimidating. But make no mistake, the Veltharian Empire has existed for 3,000 of your years. We have perfected the art of conquest. Resistance is not just futile, it is impossible. Choose wisely, humans. Serve willingly and live. Resist foolishly and die. There are no other options. There never have been. The transmission ended, leaving every screen on Earth displaying a simple countdown timer. 71 hours, 59 minutes, and 58 seconds. In the silence that followed, Taeho looked around the command center at faces filled with fear, anger, and disbelief. These were trained military personnel, people who had sworn to defend their country and their planet. Now they faced an enemy beyond anything they had ever imagined. Admiral, Taeho said quietly, what are your orders? Admiral Chen stared at the countdown timer for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady despite the impossible situation. We do what we've always done, Commander. We get ready to fight. Outside, the alien ships continued their silent vigil over Earth's cities, waiting for humanity's answer. 3 days passed like a nightmare. Lieutenant Commander Kim Taeho watched the news reports from around the world with growing anger. Several smaller countries had already announced their surrender. The President of France stood before cameras with tears in his eyes, declaring that resistance was impossible. The Prime Minister of Australia echoed similar words, saying that saving some lives was better than losing everyone. But other nations refused to give up. Russia moved its entire nuclear fleet to battle stations. China began evacuating its major cities. The United States called an emergency session of Congress, though everyone knew what the vote would be. Taeho sat in the mess hall with his SEAL team, watching the debates on television. The food on his plate had grown cold hours ago. None of them could eat while watching their world prepare to surrender. This is insane, said Chief Petty Officer Lim Dong-wook, throwing his fork down in disgust. We're just going to hand over 800 million people to those monsters. What choice do we have? Replied Sergeant Kim Hyojin. You saw what their weapons did to that asteroid. They could wipe us out in minutes. Petty Officer First Class Park Min-ho shook his head. My grandmother survived the Korean War. She used to tell me stories about fighting against impossible odds. She would say that sometimes you have to fight even when you know you might lose, because some things are worth dying for. Taeho looked around the table at his team. These were good people, trained warriors who had faced danger together in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria. They had never backed down from a fight no matter how outnumbered they were. Minho is right, Taeho said quietly. If we surrender now, humanity becomes a slave species. Forever. Our children will grow up in mines on distant worlds, and their children after them. Is that really living? Before anyone could answer, Lieutenant Commander Yoon Ji-won rushed into the mess hall. Her face was pale and her hands were shaking. Taeho, you need to see this. All of you need to see this. They followed her to the intelligence center, where multiple screens showed news feeds from around the world. But one screen was different. It showed a map of Earth with red markers appearing over major cities. What are those markers? Taeho asked. Alien landing sites, Yuan replied. They're not waiting for our surrender. They're sending down smaller ships to begin collecting tribute. The main screen switched to a news report from Seoul, South Korea. The reporter's voice cracked with fear as she spoke. This is Kim Suji reporting from downtown Seoul. An alien vessel landed in Uido Park 30 minutes ago. Creatures in dark armor are moving through the streets, scanning people with strange devices. They appear to be selecting individuals based on age and physical condition. The camera showed reptilian soldiers, smaller than General Korthak, but just as frightening. They moved through crowds of panicked civilians, pointing metal devices at people. When the devices beeped, the soldiers marked those people with glowing tags. "Oh no," whispered Taiho. "They're not waiting for our government to surrender. They're starting the selection process now." Admiral Chen entered the intelligence center, her face grim. "Commander, I need to speak with you privately." They stepped into her office, where classified documents covered her desk. Charts showing alien ship positions, military response plans, and casualty estimates filled every surface. "Taiho, I'm going to ask you to do something that officially I cannot order you to do," Chen said. "I need volunteers for a reconnaissance mission. We need to know more about these aliens and their technology." "What kind of reconnaissance, Admiral?" "One of their smaller ships has landed near the DMZ in South Korea. It's collecting tribute from the Seoul metropolitan area. I want you to get close enough to gather intelligence on their capabilities, their weaknesses, anything that might help us fight back." Taiho felt his pulse quicken. "Admiral, are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I'm saying that some of us aren't ready to surrender. The President will announce our capitulation tomorrow. But that doesn't mean we stop being soldiers. It just means we become soldiers without official backing." Chen opened a file folder and spread photos across her desk. They showed the alien landing site from satellite imagery, taken just hours earlier. The ship is roughly the size of a football stadium. It has maybe 50 soldiers inside, plus technical crew. They've set up a perimeter around the landing zone, but they're overconfident. They don't expect any real resistance. What's the mission profile? Get in, gather intelligence, get out. Document their technology, their procedures, their weaknesses. We need to know how they operate if we're going to have any chance of fighting them. Taiho studied the photographs. The alien ship sat in an open field like a dark metal mountain. Strange lights pulsed along its hull and ramps extended to the ground where soldiers moved back and forth. "I'll need my team. Take whoever you want. But remember, this mission doesn't exist. If you're captured, we never sent you. If you're killed, you died in a training accident. The government cannot be connected to any aggressive action against the aliens." "Understood, Admiral." 2 hours later, Taiho assembled his team in a secure briefing room. He had chosen his best people: Minho, Dongwook, Hyojin, and Technical Sergeant Bae Min-jung from the Air Force. Each of them had volunteered without hesitation. "This is a volunteer mission," Taiho explained. "No one will think less of you if you decide not to go. But if we do nothing, millions of people will be shipped off to alien slave camps, starting with the people in Seoul." Bae Min-jung raised her hand. "Commander, my family is from Busan. If these aliens think they can just take our people, they're about to learn they picked the wrong species to mess with." The others nodded in agreement. Minho spoke for all of them. "Sir, we're with you. Whatever it takes." They spent the next 6 hours planning the mission. Satellite feeds showed the alien ship's position, guard rotations, and the pattern of tribute collection. The creatures seemed to work in shifts, with some soldiers patrolling while others processed captured civilians. "The good news is they're not expecting trouble," Yoon Ji-won briefed them. "The bad news is we don't know what their weapons can do to human targets. We've seen them destroy an asteroid, but we don't know how their personal weapons work." "Only one way to find out," Taiho replied. They left Norfolk Naval Base at midnight in a modified stealth helicopter. The pilot, Chief Warrant Officer Nam Junho, had volunteered to fly them despite the risks. As they crossed the Pacific Ocean, the alien ships hung in the sky above major cities like dark omens. "Look at that," Minho said, pointing out the window at the ship above Tokyo. "It's so big you can see it from 200 miles away." "And there are 12 of them," added Dongwook. "How do you fight something like that?" "One piece at a time," Taiho answered. "Every enemy has weaknesses. We just have to find them." The helicopter refueled twice during the long flight to South Korea. Each time they landed, local military personnel looked at them with mixtures of hope and despair. The news reports grew worse by the hour. More countries were surrendering. More cities were being processed for tribute collection, but not everyone was giving up. Reports came in of small groups of soldiers and civilians fighting back against the alien patrols. Most were quickly overwhelmed, but they were fighting nonetheless. At least we're not the only ones who refused to kneel, Yojin observed. As dawn approached, they could see the Korean peninsula ahead. The alien ship sat in the middle of what had once been farmland, now turned into a staging area for humanity's enslavement. There it is, Junho called from the pilot's seat. The target. Taiho looked down at the alien vessel and felt a cold determination settle in his chest. Somewhere below, creatures from another world were deciding the fate of innocent people. They had conquered 47 other worlds using fear and superior technology. But they had never faced humans before. They had never encountered a species that would rather die fighting than live in chains. Set us down 2 kilometers away, Taiho ordered. It's time to introduce ourselves to the neighborhood. The alien ship looked even more massive up close. Lieutenant Commander Kim Taiho crouched behind a fallen tree with his team, studying the enemy through binoculars. The vessel stretched nearly 1,000 feet in every direction, its dark metal hull covered with strange symbols that seemed to glow in the early morning light. Movement at the south ramp, whispered Technical Sergeant Bei Min-jung. Looks like another group of prisoners being brought in. Taiho watched through his scope as reptilian soldiers herded a line of Korean civilians up a ramp into the ship's belly. Men, women, and children walked with their heads down, glowing tags attached to their clothes. The aliens had selected them for strength and health like livestock at a market. Those bastards, muttered Chief Petty Officer Lim Dong-wook. They're treating people like cargo. Count the guards, Taiho ordered, forcing himself to stay focused on the mission. Anger would not help the prisoners. Intelligence might. They spent 2 hours observing the alien operation. The creatures worked in predictable patterns, rotating guards every 30 minutes. Their weapons looked like silver tubes that hummed with energy. Most importantly, they seemed overconfident, barely paying attention to the perimeter. They've conquered 47 worlds, Sergeant Kim Hyojin observed. Probably never faced real resistance. They don't expect trouble. Petty Officer First Class Park Min-ho pointed to a smaller structure near the main ship. What's that building? Looks different from the ship. Through the binoculars, Taiho could see a temporary structure made of the same dark metal as the ship. Strange lights blinked along its walls and several aliens in different colored armor moved in and out. Command post, maybe. Or a communication center. Sir, Min-jung said quietly, I think I can get us closer. There's a drainage ditch that runs along the east side. If we time it with their guard rotation. Taiho made the decision that would change everything. We're going in. They moved like shadows across the Korean countryside. Years of training in hostile territory served them well as they approached the alien perimeter. The creatures were large and strong, but they moved like beings who had never needed to worry about stealth. The drainage ditch was deeper than it looked, carved by decades of monsoon rains. It provided perfect cover as they crawled within 50 meters of the command structure. Through gaps in the concrete, they could see alien soldiers walking past. Holy hell, Dong-wook whispered. Look at the size of those things. The aliens stood nearly 8 feet tall, their reptilian skin covered by armor that looked both ancient and advanced. Their weapons hummed with barely contained energy, and their yellow eyes swept constantly across their surroundings. Taiho pulled out his camera and began documenting everything. The ship's design, the aliens' equipment, their patrol patterns. Every detail might be crucial if humanity was going to fight back. That's when they heard the sound that changed everything. A human voice, speaking in accented English from inside the command structure. Please, I have information about Earth's defenses. I can help you. Taiho felt his blood turn cold. Someone was collaborating with the aliens. Minho grabbed his arm. Sir, we need to hear this. Against his better judgment, Taiho led his team closer to the structure. Through a gap in the metal walls, they could see inside. A middle-aged man in an expensive suit sat across from a reptilian officer, who was even larger than the others. The human was clearly terrified but trying to appear cooperative. The Americans have nuclear submarines, the man was saying. 12 of them, maybe more. They also have stealth bombers and missile defense systems. The alien officer spoke in a voice like grinding stone. These weapons cannot harm our ships. No, but they might try anyway. If you knew where the submarines were based, you could eliminate them before they became a problem. Taiho recognized the accent. The collaborator was Korean. probably a government official. The betrayal hit him like a physical blow. The alien leaned forward. Continue. There's a naval base in Norfolk, Virginia, another in San Diego. If you destroyed those first, Hyojin started to move forward, but Taiho held her back. They needed more information before they acted. The conversation continued for 20 minutes. The collaborator revealed locations of military bases, government bunkers, and resistance leaders. With each word, he doomed thousands of his own species to make himself valuable to the aliens. Finally, the reptilian officer stood up. Your information is useful, human. You will be rewarded with a position in the new order. Thank you, the collaborator said, relief obvious in his voice. I knew cooperation was the only logical choice. The alien's response sent chills down Taiho's spine. Indeed, you will oversee tribute selection in the Soul sector. Your knowledge of your own kind will help us identify the most suitable workers. As the meeting broke up, Taiho made rapid hand signals to his team. They had learned enough. It was time to leave, but Minho had other ideas. As they crawled back through the drainage ditch, Minho suddenly stopped. Sir, we can't let that traitor keep talking. The mission is intelligence gathering, not assassination. He just gave them the locations of every major military base in America. How many people will die because of what he told them? Taiho knew Minho was right, but they were outnumbered 50-1. Any aggressive action would likely get them all killed, and the intelligence they had gathered would die with them. We stick to the mission, he ordered. They were almost back to their extraction. Point when the alarm sounded, wailing siren echoed across the alien compound, unlike anything they had ever heard. The alien soldiers immediately began moving in organized patterns, no longer lazy or overconfident. What did we trigger? Hyojin asked. Nothing, Taiho replied, checking his watch. We didn't touch anything. Through his binoculars, he could see the source of the commotion. The collaborator was running toward the ship's main ramp, his expensive suit torn and dirty. Behind him, 3 Korean civilians were fighting with alien guards, using nothing but their bare hands and desperate courage. One of them was an elderly woman, maybe 70 years old. She had grabbed an alien weapon and was trying to figure out how to use it. The other 2, a man and a teenage girl, were throwing rocks at creatures 3 times their size. They had no chance of winning. But they were fighting anyway, damn it, Minho said. We have to help them. Negative. We extract now, but it was already too late. The elderly woman had somehow activated the alien weapon. A beam of blue energy lanced out, striking one of the guards in the chest. The creature collapsed, its armor smoking. The other aliens responded immediately. Energy beams filled the air around the 3 fighters. The teenage girl fell first, then the man. The elderly woman kept firing until multiple beams struck her down. In the sudden silence that followed, Taiho heard something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. The old woman's last words, spoken in Korean but clear enough for anyone to understand. We don't kneel. The alien soldiers moved to secure the area, but something was wrong. The weapon the woman had used was smoking and sparking. Whatever she had done to activate it had damaged its power source. More importantly, other weapons throughout the compound were beginning to malfunction. Lights flickered. The humming sound that filled the air began to stutter. Look at that, Minjung whispered. The whole system is connected. When one weapon overloaded, it affected all of them. Taiho realized they had just witnessed something incredibly important. The aliens' technology was networked together. If you could disrupt one piece, you might be able to disrupt the entire system. That's their weakness, he said quietly. They're too dependent on their technology, and their technology has flaws. As they retreated toward the extraction point, Taiho's mind raced with possibilities. The aliens were powerful, but they weren't invincible. They could be hurt. Their weapons could malfunction. And most importantly, humans would fight even when there was no hope of victory. Behind them, the alien compound buzzed with activity as soldiers worked to restore their damaged systems. The collaborator stood near the ship's ramp, no longer looking confident. Even he seemed to realize that his new masters might not be as all-powerful as they claimed. Sir, Minho said as they reached the helicopter. What do we tell Admiral Chen? Taiho looked back at the alien ship one last time. Somewhere inside that dark metal hull, hundreds of his people were being prepared for slavery. But now he knew something the aliens didn't expect him to know. Humans would never stop fighting, and their technology could be beaten. We tell her that the war just started. The war room at Norfolk Naval Base had been transformed into something from a science fiction movie. Lieutenant Commander Kim Tae-ho stood before a massive wall display, showing the positions of all 12 alien ships around Earth. Red dots marked enemy vessels, while blue symbols showed human military assets positioning for the impossible. Admiral Sarah Chen paced behind a table covered with technical specifications that Dr. Han Soo-young had compiled from the intelligence Tae-ho's team had gathered. The physicist looked exhausted after working for 72 hours straight, but her eyes blazed with the excitement of discovery. "Tell me again about the weapon malfunction," Dr. Han said to Tae-ho. When the old woman activated the alien weapon, it overloaded. The energy feedback affected other systems throughout their compound. Lights flickered, other weapons sparked, their communication system went down for almost 10 minutes. Dr. Han nodded excitedly. "It's exactly what I thought. Their technology operates on quantum entanglement principles. Every device is connected to every other device through subspace frequencies. It makes their systems incredibly efficient, but it also creates a massive vulnerability. Explain it in simple terms." "Doctor," Admiral Chen requested, "imagine their entire fleet as one giant computer network. If you can inject the right kind of virus into one part of the network, it spreads to every connected system. Their strength is also their greatest weakness." Tae-ho felt a spark of hope for the first time in days. "Can we create that kind of virus?" "I've been working on it since you returned. The alien communication device you captured has given us access to their command frequencies. I think I can design an electromagnetic pulse that will disrupt their quantum entanglement field." Admiral Chen stopped pacing. "How long?" "6 hours to build the devices. Another 2 to coordinate the attack." "Do it." As Dr. Han rushed back to her laboratory, Admiral Chen turned to address the room full of officers. Representatives from every branch of the military, along with intelligence operatives from around the world, filled every seat. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Operation Gravedigger. We have one chance to catch them by surprise. Every nuclear submarine, every stealth bomber, every railgun platform on Earth will coordinate simultaneous strikes on all 12 alien vessels." Captain Lee Youngman from the Marines raised his hand. "Admiral, even if we disable their shields, do we have enough firepower to destroy ships that size?" "We're about to find out, Captain. The alternative is letting them enslave our entire species." Lieutenant Commander Yoon Ji-won activated the tactical display. "Intelligence indicates that if we can destroy 8 of their 12 ships, the remaining vessels will likely retreat. The aliens have never faced significant losses before. They're not prepared for a real fight." Tae-ho studied the attack plan. It was brilliant, desperate, and probably suicidal, but it was the only chance humanity had. "Admiral, request permission to lead a boarding party to the flagship." "Denied. The space-to-surface mission is too dangerous. Ma'am, while the main fleet engages, a small team could infiltrate their command ship and plant nuclear charges in their power core. Even if we don't destroy all their ships, taking out their command vessel would cripple their ability to coordinate." Admiral Chen considered this for a long moment. "You really think you can get inside that thing?" "We've done it before. Their security is designed to keep large forces out, not small infiltration teams. And they're not expecting humans to be crazy enough to board their ships during a battle." Chief Petty Officer Lim Dongwook stepped forward. "Sir, Gravedigger Squad volunteers for the mission." "Gravedigger Squad?" "That's what we're calling ourselves," explained Sergeant Kim Hyojin. "After what Park Min-ho said about burying them." The mention of Min-ho's name brought a moment of silence. During their extraction from Korea, they had been discovered by an alien patrol. Min-ho had stayed behind to hold them off, armed with nothing but captured alien weapons and unbreakable determination. His last transmission had been simple. "Tell them humans don't kneel." "Permission granted," Admiral Chen said quietly. "But this is a one-way mission. Once you're on that ship, we can't extract you." "Understood, ma'am." The next 8 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Around the world, military forces moved into position with a coordination that would have been impossible before the alien threat. Ancient enemies worked together, sharing intelligence and resources for the survival of their species. Russian submarines surfaced in the Arctic Ocean, their nuclear missiles targeted at the ship hanging over Moscow. Chinese stealth fighters took off from hidden airfields, carrying experimental plasma weapons. European railguns built in secret mountain facilities powered up for the first time. Dr. Han completed her electromagnetic pulse devices just as the sun set over Norfolk. Each device was roughly the size of a briefcase designed to be attached to nuclear warheads that would detonate at precisely the right frequency to disrupt alien shield harmonics. Will it work? Tahoe asked. In theory, yes. In practice, we're about to find out. At 600 GMT, Operation Gravedigger began. The first indication that something was wrong came from the alien ship over London. Its running lights flickered, then went dark for almost 30 seconds. Similar disruptions appeared over every major city as Dr. Han's virus spread through the alien network. EMP devices are working, Yoon reported from the command center. Alien shield strength is down 40% across all vessels. All units commence attack, Admiral Chen ordered. Around the world, humanity struck back with everything they had. Nuclear submarines launched ballistic missiles from the ocean depths. Stealth bombers dropped plasma warheads on ships that had seemed invulnerable just days before. Railguns fired projectiles at incredible velocities, punching through weakened alien armor. The aliens responded immediately. Energy beams lanced down from the sky, turning entire city blocks to glass. But their aim was off, their weapon systems disrupted by the electromagnetic interference. 4 enemy ships showing critical damage, Yoon reported. 2 more have lost primary power. Tahoe and his team launched from a modified stealth helicopter, using experimental rocket packs to reach the flagship hanging over Washington, D.C. The massive vessel was firing at ground targets, but its defensive systems were focused downward, not expecting an attack from below. They landed on the ship's hull during a barrage of energy weapon fire that lit up the sky like lightning. The metal under their feet vibrated with the power of weapons that could destroy cities. Find an entry point, Tahoe ordered through his helmet radio. Technical Sergeant Bay. Minjung used alien cutting tools they had captured to open a maintenance hatch. Got it. Atmosphere inside is breathable. They dropped into a corridor filled with the sound of alarms and running footsteps. The ship's interior looked like the inside of a cathedral made of metal and crystal, with strange geometric patterns covering every surface. Power core should be at the ship's center, Minjung said, consulting the schematics Dr. Han had provided. 3 levels down, then follow the main conduit. They moved through the ship like ghosts, avoiding alien crew members who were too busy fighting the external battle to notice human infiltrators. The nuclear devices strapped to their backs felt heavier with each step. Contact front, Dongwook whispered as they reached a major intersection. A group of alien soldiers in full combat armor stood guard at what looked like an important doorway. Their weapons hummed with deadly energy, and their reptilian eyes swept the corridor methodically. Can we go around? Hyojin asked. Negative. That's the only way to the power core. Tahoe made the decision that would define the battle. We go through them. The fight was brief and violent. Alien weapons could vaporize human bodies, but humans were faster, smaller, and more desperate. They used captured alien firearms and pure aggression to overwhelm guards who had never faced opponents willing to die for victory. Move, 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 Tahoe shouted as more alarms began sounding throughout the ship. They reached the power core chamber to find something that defied human understanding. A sphere of pure energy floated in the center of a vast room, contained by fields of force that bent light around them. The power source that drove the massive ship hummed with barely contained fury. How do we destroy that? Dongwook asked. The same way we destroy everything else, Tahoe replied, arming his nuclear device. With human stubbornness. They placed all 4 nuclear charges around the containment field, then began the long climb back to the ship's surface. Behind them, countdown timers showed 3 minutes until detonation. Sir, we're not going to make it out in time, Hyojin observed as they ran through corridors filled with alien soldiers responding to the breach. I know. They fought their way through the ship deck by deck, knowing that each second brought them closer to the explosion that would destroy them along with their enemies. But they also knew that millions of people were counting on them to stop the alien invasion. With 30 seconds left on the timer, they reached an observation deck on the ship's outer hull. Through transparent metal windows, they could see the battle raging around Earth. Human cities burned, but alien ships were falling from the sky like dying stars. Look at that, Minjung said with wonder in her voice. The alien ship over Tokyo was breaking apart, its massive hull glowing with internal explosions. General Korthak stood in his command chamber, watching his empire crumble around him. Through the massive viewing windows of his flagship, he could see 3 of his dreadnoughts burning in Earth's atmosphere like falling meteors. The primitive humans had somehow destroyed 8 of his 12 ships in a coordinated attack that should have been impossible. General, his communications officer reported with barely concealed panic. Admiral Vorthax is requesting permission to retreat. His ship has lost main power and life support is failing. Korthak's amber eyes blazed with fury. In 3,000 years of conquest, the Veltharian Empire had never lost more than a single ship to any enemy. These humans had devastated his fleet in a matter of hours. Retreat denied, he snarled. We do not flee from primitives. His tactical officer, a scarred veteran named Commander Vex, stepped forward hesitantly. Sir, perhaps a strategic withdrawal would allow us to regroup and return with a larger force. Korthak struck the smaller reptilian across the face with the back of his clawed hand. Are you suggesting we admit defeat to creatures that discovered fire only yesterday? We are the masters of this galaxy. We do not lose to insects. But even as he spoke, more reports flooded in. The humans had somehow created a virus that disrupted Veltharian quantum technology. Their primitive kinetic weapons had punched through shields that should have been impenetrable. Worst of all, human soldiers had somehow infiltrated his ships and planted explosive devices in their power cores. How did they get inside our vessels? Korthak demanded. Unknown, General. Our sensors showed no large-scale boarding attempts. Somehow small teams penetrated our security without triggering defensive systems. Korthak slammed his fist down on the command console, cracking the crystal surface. The humans were making him look like a fool in front of his own officers. More than that, they were threatening the reputation of the entire Veltharian Empire. For 3 millennia, the Empire had maintained order through fear and overwhelming superiority. Every species they encountered learned the same lesson. Resistance was futile. Submission was the only choice. The tribute system worked because everyone understood that the Veltharians were unstoppable. But if word spread that humans had defeated a Veltharian fleet, other conquered worlds might begin to rebel. The entire empire could collapse into chaos. Set course for the largest human population center, Korthak ordered. If we cannot defeat their military, we will show them the price of resistance. Sir, that would be the city called New York. Approximately 8 million inhabitants. Perfect. We will ram this ship into their city at maximum velocity. The explosion will be visible from orbit, and the death toll will serve as an example to any other humans thinking of rebellion. Commander Vex looked horrified. General, that would mean our own deaths as well. Better to die with honor than live with the shame of defeat. Besides, my death will make me a martyr. Future Veltharian commanders will remember that I chose glory over retreat. The massive flagship began turning toward the eastern seaboard of North America, its engines straining to build momentum for the suicidal attack. But Korthak had forgotten one crucial detail from his intelligence briefings. Human soldiers never gave up. Deep in the ship's lower levels, Lieutenant Commander Kim Tae-ho was still alive. The nuclear explosion had been contained by the flagship's emergency systems, but the electromagnetic pulse had disabled most of the ship's internal defenses. Tae-ho and the surviving members of Gravedigger Squad were now fighting their way through corridor after corridor of confused alien crew members. Sir, the ship is changing course, Technical Sergeant Bae Min-jung reported, checking her captured alien scanner. We're heading directly for the North American coast. Chief Petty Officer Lim Dongwook was bleeding from a dozen wounds, but his eyes still burned with determination. They're going to ram us into a city, aren't they? Probably New York, Tae-ho replied grimly. 8 million people. Sergeant Kim Hyojin finished bandaging a plasma burn on her arm. Then we stopped them. How? We used all our nuclear charges on the power core. The same way humans have always stopped bullies, Tae-ho said, checking his remaining ammunition. We beat them up until they quit. They had been fighting through the ship for 2 hours using captured alien weapons and pure human stubbornness to overcome enemies twice their size. The aliens were stronger and better armed, but they had never faced opponents who simply refused to die. Bridge is 12 levels up, Min-jung said, consulting her scanner. Heavy resistance between here and there. Then we go through them. The battle through the flagship became legend among the survivors. 4 humans against hundreds of alien warriors, fighting deck by deck through a ship the size of a city. They used alien weapons, human tactics, and desperate courage to overcome every obstacle. Dongwook fell first, using his body to shield the others from a plasma blast that would have killed them all. His last words were simple. Don't let them win. Hyojin died holding a choke point that allowed Taiho and Minjung to reach the upper levels. She stood alone against 20 alien soldiers, firing captured weapons until her ammunition ran out, then fighting with her bare hands until plasma fire finally brought her down. Minjung made it to within 3 levels of the bridge before alien security forces cornered her in an engine compartment. She triggered the emergency systems that flooded the entire section with coolant gas, taking out a dozen enemies but sacrificing herself in the process. That left Taiho alone, wounded, exhausted, and facing the impossible task of stopping a ship the size of Manhattan from crashing into New York City. But he was still human, which meant he was too stubborn to quit. He reached the bridge to find General Korthak standing before the main viewing screen, watching the Earth grow larger as the ship accelerated toward impact. The alien commander was massive even by Veltharian standards, his scaled hide covered with the scars of 100 battles. Impossible, Korthak said when he saw the lone human enter his command chamber. How did you get past my guards? Taiho raised his captured plasma rifle, though his hands shook with exhaustion. Around the bridge, other alien officers reached for their weapons. Same way we got past your shields, your armor, and your arrogance, Taiho replied. By refusing to give up. Korthak studied the human with something approaching respect. You are the one who destroyed my ships. Me and a few friends. Your species shows more courage than I expected. In other circumstances, you might have made worthy servants of the Empire. We don't serve anyone but ourselves. Korthak laughed, a sound like grinding stone. Even now, facing certain death, you show defiance. Admirable but pointless. In 10 minutes, this ship will impact your largest city. Millions of your kind will die and their deaths will be on your head. Maybe. But at least they'll die free. The alien general's expression grew serious. You could still serve the Empire. Surrender now and I will spare your city. Your species has proven its worth in battle. We could use warriors like you in our expansion fleets. You want our people as soldiers? Why not? You fight better than most of the species we have conquered. With proper training and Veltharian equipment, humans could become valuable assets to the Empire. For a moment, Taiho almost considered it. 8 million lives hung in the balance. If he surrendered, those people would live. His family in California would be safe. Earth might survive under alien rule, but then he remembered the elderly Korean woman who had died rather than submit. He thought of Park Min-ho, who had sacrificed himself to buy time for the mission. He remembered every human who had chosen to fight rather than kneel. You know what your problem is? Taiho said, keeping his weapon trained on the alien general. You've conquered so many worlds that you forgot what it's like to face someone who won't give up. Surrender, human. Last chance, you want tribute? Taiho pulled the pins from his last 2 grenades, holding them ready. Here's our tribute. Korthak roared with rage and charged across the bridge, his massive claws extended to tear the human apart. But Taiho had one advantage the alien didn't expect. He was already dying. Plasma burns covered half his body. He had lost too much blood to survive much longer. But he had just enough strength left to do what needed to be done. As Korthak's claws raked across his chest, Taiho grabbed the alien's weapon harness and pulled himself close enough to look into those cold amber eyes. You said 47 worlds offered tribute. Taiho gasped through the pain. Well, Earth has a different answer. What answer is that, human? Taiho smiled, his blood staining the alien's scaled hide. We'll bury you instead. He released both grenades and threw himself at the bridge's main control panel. The explosions tore through the ship's navigation systems, sending the massive vessel spinning out of control. General Korthak died in the blast, along with his command crew and his dreams of human submission. The flagship, no longer under control, tumbled harmlessly into the Atlantic Ocean instead of crashing into New York City. As the ship sank beneath the waves, taking the last of the Veltharian invasion force with it, Lieutenant Commander Kim Taiho allowed himself one final thought. Humanity would never kneel to anyone, and now the entire galaxy would know it. 6 months after the battle for Earth, Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the UES Minho, humanity's first interstellar warship. The vessel stretched nearly 2 miles from bow to stern, built from salvaged alien technology and human determination. Its weapons could crack moons, and its shields could withstand the fury of stars. But what impressed Chen most was not the ship's size or power. It was the name painted on its hull in letters 10 feet tall. We'll bury you instead. Admiral, said Captain Yoon Ji-won, approaching with a data tablet. Long-range sensors are picking up movement at the edge of the solar system. Chen accepted the report without surprise. They had been expecting this for months. Veltharian ships? 12 contacts, ma'am. Much larger than the ones we destroyed. Intelligence estimates suggest they're bringing everything they have. Through the observation windows, Chen could see the orbital shipyards where humanity was building its new fleet. Dozens of warships in various stages of completion filled the space around Earth, while automated factories churned out weapons and armor using alien technology. The tribute crisis had changed everything. In 6 months, humanity had advanced technologically by centuries, but more importantly, the species had finally united under a single purpose. Never again would Earth bow to alien masters. How long until they arrive? 3 weeks at current velocity. Chen nodded. 3 weeks to prepare for a battle that would determine the fate of human civilization. It should have been terrifying, but she felt only calm determination. Send a message to all fleet commanders. Operation Gravedigger 2 begins immediately. The transformation of Earth had been remarkable to witness. Countries that had been enemies for generations now worked together in perfect cooperation. The United Nations had been replaced by the United Earth Defense Council, with military leaders from every nation serving under a single command structure. Dr. Han Soo-young had been promoted to Director of Alien Technology Research, overseeing laboratories on every continent. Her teams had reverse-engineered Veltharian weapons, shields, engines, and communication systems. More importantly, they had improved on the original designs. The aliens made one crucial mistake, Dr. Han had explained during a briefing. They assumed their technology was perfect because it had never been challenged. But human engineers love to tinker with things. We've found ways to make their weapons more powerful, their shields stronger, and their engines faster. The most significant change, however, was in humanity's attitude toward the stars. Before the invasion, space exploration had been the province of scientists and dreamers. Now every child on Earth grew up knowing that the galaxy was full of predators, and that survival depended on becoming the strongest species among them. Military academies taught courses on alien combat tactics. Engineering schools focused on spacecraft design and exotic weapons. Even civilian institutions integrated space-based curriculum into their programs. The memorial wall at Norfolk Naval Base had become a pilgrimage site for people from around the world. Thousands of names were etched into its black surface, including those of Lieutenant Commander Kim Tae-ho and the members of Gravedigger Squad. At the bottom, in letters of gold, were inscribed Tae-ho's final words to General Korthak. Children left flowers at the base of the wall. Veterans saluted. World leaders came to remember the price of freedom. But perhaps the most important change was psychological. Humanity had looked into the abyss of eternal slavery and chosen to fight instead. The species that had once been divided by race, religion, and nationality now shared a common identity. They were the people who refused to kneel. Ma'am, Captain Yoon interrupted her thoughts. We're receiving a transmission from deep space. Put it through. The main viewing screen flickered to life, revealing a reptilian face that was both familiar and different. This alien wore more elaborate armor than General Korthak had, and his scales showed the silver coloring that marked Veltharian nobility. People of Earth, the creature said in perfect English, I am Admiral Vorthon of the Veltharian Empire. You have committed acts of unprovoked aggression against Imperial forces. Chen stepped forward. Admiral, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Council. Your forces invaded our system and attempted to enslave our population. We responded in self-defense. You destroyed 12 Imperial vessels and killed thousands of loyal soldiers, including General Korthak, a hero of the Empire. This cannot be allowed to stand. General Korthak was a would-be conqueror who threatened to commit genocide against innocent civilians. His death was justice, not murder. Admiral Vorthon's eyes glowed with cold fury. You speak as if you have the right to judge the actions of your superiors. The Veltharian Empire has brought order to 47 worlds across this galaxy. We offer civilization to primitive species. You offer slavery, Chen replied. We declined your offer. Your defiance has consequences, human. I am bringing the largest fleet in Imperial history to your system. 120 ships, each more powerful than the vessels you destroyed. We will make an example of your species that will echo across the galaxy for 1,000 years. Chen felt no fear at the threat. If anything, she felt a familiar surge of the same determination that had driven Kim Tae-ho to fight impossible odds. Admiral Vorthon, let me save you some time. We've had this conversation before with your predecessor. It didn't end well for him. General Korthak underestimated your primitive cunning. I will not make the same mistake. When I am finished, your planet will be a monument to the folly of resisting the Empire. You're welcome to try. The alien admiral leaned closer to the camera, his reptilian features twisted with arrogance. Do you truly believe your species can stand against the might of an empire that spans the galaxy? We have conquered worlds with technology far beyond yours. We have defeated species that have traveled between stars for millennia. And yet here we are, still free. Your freedom is an illusion that will be shattered when my fleet arrives. Prepare your people for tribute selection. Admiral Chen, perhaps if you surrender immediately, I will allow some of your cities to survive as a reminder of Imperial mercy. Chen walked closer to the viewing screen until she was face to face with the alien commander. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of an entire species that had chosen defiance over submission. Admiral Vorthon, on behalf of the 8 billion free human beings living in this system, I have a message for you and your empire. Speak. We'll bury you instead. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the UES Minho in silence. Captain Yoon was the first to speak. Ma'am, should we begin evacuation procedures for civilian populations? Negative. We evacuated once before and decided we didn't like it. This time, we stay and fight. Over the next 3 weeks, humanity prepared for war with an efficiency that would have impressed their alien enemies. Every ship in the fleet was loaded with weapons that had been designed specifically to kill Veltharians. Every orbital platform was armed with railguns that could punch through any known armor. Every soldier trained with equipment that had been tested in actual combat against alien forces. More importantly, the entire population understood what was at stake. This was not a war for territory or resources. This was a fight for the right to exist as a free species. Children too young to fight built ammunition in factories. Elderly citizens who remembered life before the invasion worked in shipyards. Scientists labored around the clock to develop new weapons. Artists created propaganda that reminded everyone why they were fighting. The most popular poster showed a young girl holding a flag with Earth's symbol, standing defiantly in front of a burning alien ship. The caption read, "They wanted tribute. We gave them hell." On the day the Veltharian fleet arrived, Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the flagship surrounded by officers from every nation on Earth. Captain Lee Youngmin represented the Marines. Colonel Park Jisoo spoke for the Army. Commander Kim Tae-jin commanded the Space Force. Together, they represented the united will of humanity. Enemy contacts entering sensor range, reported the tactical officer. 120 ships just as promised. Fleet status? 42 warships ready for combat. Orbital defense platforms online. All civilian populations secure in underground shelters. Chen studied the tactical display. The Veltharian fleet was massive, but it was also predictable. Like all Imperial forces, they relied on overwhelming superiority and intimidation tactics. They expected their enemies to panic and surrender. They had never faced humans before. All ships. This is Admiral Chen. Today we fight not just for Earth, but for the principle that free people will never bow to tyrants. Our enemies come expecting to find the same primitive species they tried to conquer 6 months ago. They're about to discover how much humans can accomplish when we're properly motivated. The fleet moved into formation with precision. That would have been impossible without the shared sacrifice of the tribute crisis. Ships that bore the names of fallen heroes took their positions. The UES Minho, the UES Gravedigger, the UES Taiho, the UES Never Kneel. "Ma'am," the communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the enemy flagship." "Put it through." Admiral Vorthon appeared on screen, but his confident demeanor had changed. Behind him, other Veltharian officers studied tactical. 5 years after the second battle for Earth, Commander Bae Sujin stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance as it emerged from hyperspace near the Kepler 442 system. The journey from Earth had taken 3 months, but humanity's first interstellar colony ship had finally reached its destination. Through the viewing windows, she could see a blue-green world that looked remarkably similar to Earth. Long-range sensors had confirmed breathable atmosphere, liquid water, and no signs of intelligent life. It would be humanity's first foothold beyond the solar system. "Ma'am," reported Lieutenant Han Minjae from the navigation station, "we're receiving a signal from the surface." Sujin felt her pulse quicken. The planet was supposed to be uninhabited. "What kind of signal?" "It's weak, but it appears to be a distress beacon. The frequency matches galactic standard, not any known Earth technology." The commander studied the tactical display. After 5 years of peace, humanity had grown comfortable with the idea that the galaxy respected their strength. But space was vast, and there were countless species they had never encountered. "Take us into orbit. Launch reconnaissance drones. I want to know what's down there before we commit to landing." The Defiance was not just a colony ship. It carried 5,000 civilians ready to start new lives among the stars, but it also mounted weapons that could level continents. Humanity had learned to balance hope with preparedness. The reconnaissance data revealed something unexpected. On the planet's largest continent, a small settlement of crude shelters surrounded what appeared to be a crashed spaceship. Thermal scans showed approximately 200 life forms moving around the site. "Commander," the science officer reported, "the crashed vessel appears to be of Veltharian design, but it's old, probably been there for several years." Sujin considered her options. The smart move would be to avoid contact entirely and establish the colony on a different continent. But the distress signal suggested that whoever was down there needed help. "Prep a shuttle team, 20 Marines, full armor, and medical supplies." "Ma'am, wouldn't it be safer to avoid contact?" "Probably. But we're not here to play it safe. We're here to plant humanity's flag among the stars and show the galaxy what we stand for." An hour later, Sujin led a landing party toward the alien settlement. As their shuttle descended through the atmosphere, she could see the crash site more clearly. The Veltharian ship had obviously been there for years, its hull split open and overgrown with native vegetation. The creatures gathered around the landing zone were not Veltharians. They stood only 4 feet tall with smooth gray skin and large dark eyes that suggested they were primarily nocturnal. Their clothing was simple and their technology appeared primitive. One of them stepped forward as the human shuttle landed. When it spoke, its voice was translated by the universal communicator humanity had developed from captured alien technology. "Are you here to take us back to the Empire?" the creature asked, fear obvious in its tone. "What Empire?" Sujin replied as she emerged from the shuttle. "The Veltharian Empire. We are escaped tribute workers from the mining colonies. We stole this ship during a rebellion, but it was damaged during our escape. We have been stranded here for 4 years." Sujin felt a familiar surge of anger. Even after their defeats, the Veltharians were still enslaving innocent species across the galaxy. "We're not Veltharians," she said gently. "We're humans from a planet called Earth. We fought the Empire and won our freedom." The alien's large eyes widened with something that might have been hope. "You defeated the Empire?" "We destroyed their fleets and sent the survivors running. No one pays tribute to the Veltharians anymore." The creature fell to its knees, and soon others were doing the same. But Sujin quickly stepped forward to help the alien back to its feet. "Don't kneel," she said firmly. "Where we come from, free people don't kneel to anyone." Over the following days, the humans learned the refugees' story. They called themselves the Keth, and they had been one of the first species conquered by the Veltharian Empire nearly 1,000 years ago. Generations of their people had lived and died in slavery, until a small group managed to steal a ship and escape. "We had heard rumors of a species that refused to pay tribute," explained their leader, an elderly Keth named Valor. "But we thought they were just stories told by desperate slaves." "They're not stories," Sujin assured him. "And you're not slaves anymore." The human colony established itself on the opposite side of the planet, but the two groups worked together from the beginning. The Keth possessed knowledge of galactic history and politics that humans lacked, while humanity offered technology and protection. More importantly, they shared a common philosophy. Freedom was worth any sacrifice. Word of the Human-Keth alliance spread quickly through underground networks of escaped slaves and rebel groups across the galaxy. Within months, delegations from dozens of oppressed species were requesting sanctuary in human space. Admiral Chen, now promoted to Fleet Admiral and Commander of Earth's growing interstellar navy, established a simple policy. Any species fleeing tyranny would find safe haven under human protection. "We're not building an empire," she explained during a council meeting. "We're building something better. an alliance of free peoples who choose to stand together against oppression. The Galactic Liberation Alliance grew rapidly. Within 2 years, it included 47 species, the same number of worlds the Veltharians had once enslaved. The irony was not lost on anyone, but growth brought challenges. Not every refugee was what they appeared to be. Some were Veltharian agents attempting to infiltrate human space. Others brought conflicts and grudges that threatened to tear the alliance apart. The test came during the Proxima Crisis, when 2 member species nearly went to war over territorial disputes. Traditional galactic politics would have resolved the conflict through conquest or tribute, but humanity insisted on a different approach. "We don't settle disagreements with weapons," Admiral Chen told the assembled delegates. "We settle them with words, compromise, and mutual respect. If you can't accept that, you're free to leave the alliance." Both species chose to stay and work out their differences peacefully. The precedent established humanity as more than just another military power. They were becoming the moral center of a new galactic order. The Veltharian Empire, meanwhile, was collapsing. Decades of relying on tribute and slave labor had left them unable to maintain their own infrastructure without constant exploitation of other species. When the tribute stopped flowing, their economy collapsed. Reports reached human space of Veltharian worlds descending into chaos as their ruling class fought over dwindling resources. Some Veltharian colonies declared independence and requested alliance protection. Others simply vanished into civil war and anarchy. Commander Su Jin, now promoted to admiral and commanding the alliance's exploration fleet, often thought about Lieutenant Commander Kim Tae-ho and his final words to General Korthak. The man who had died to save New York City could never have imagined that his defiance would ultimately free an entire galaxy. But perhaps that was the point. Tae-ho hadn't fought for galactic liberation or to build an alliance of free worlds. He had fought for one simple principle: the right to choose his own fate and the fate of his people. That principle had grown from one man's courage into a movement that spanned the stars. On the 5th anniversary of the Battle for Earth, a memorial was erected on the Keth homeworld. It was a simple stone monument with an inscription in every language spoken by Alliance members. The inscription was Kim Tae-ho's final message to those who would enslave free peoples. "We'll bury you instead." Children from 47 different species learned the story of the human who chose death over submission. They learned that freedom was not something granted by governments or empires, but something that had to be fought for and defended by every generation. And in classrooms across the galaxy, teachers told their students the most important lesson of all. When faced with the choice between freedom and safety, between standing up and kneeling down, there was only one answer that free people could give. They would choose to stand, no matter the cost. The age of the Galactic Liberation Alliance had begun, built on the foundation of one simple truth: no one was born to serve, and everyone deserved the right to choose their own destiny among the stars. In the end, humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had liberated it, and that made all the difference.